morning, everyone.
Morning.
Welcome to Island Grove Park in the town of Abington. And I have to say all this because we're on cable as well. So,
Okay.
and YouTube. So hopefully you're all dressed properly for this. But nonetheless, this is a joint venture between Abington Celebrates, the Dyer Memorial Library, and the Historical Society of Old Abington. I am Doug Ulwick. I'm president of the Historical Society of Old Abington, and I'm joined by Eileen Walls,
Hi.
who is a local historian, former teacher, and an active presence at the Dyer Memorial Library.
And Historical Society.
And that as well, thank you. By the way, the Dyer will be open today from
12 to 3. Yeah.
So when you're done here, if you haven't had enough history for the day, please, by all means, go.
There's
Even
a
if
really,
you have had enough history for the day.
yeah, but there's
go
a
anyway.
really nice new Revolutionary War, Old Abington's role in the Revolution. There's a nice new exhibit there that you might want to stop by and see. Things that haven't been out, could be in forever, that are being displayed
Now.
now. Yeah.
It's great. Also, a heads-up announcement. You probably all know this. I'm seeing familiar faces here, so you're probably up on the news. The family activities and the fireworks scheduled for tonight are postponed for 24 hours at Memorial Field, and the fireworks postponed for 24 hours. They were hoping that the weather cells that were coming in were going to allow us a window of opportunity for tonight, but that's not happening. So we're playing our rain date card, and that will be tomorrow. So anyway, how many people here are from Abington? Show of hands. Excellent. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And for those who are not, welcome. I always like to start with a little bit of where are we and how did we get here? Sort of introduction here as to why we're here at Island Grove. Abington actually was originally part of the Bridgewaters, and you might be familiar with the first two settlements of this part of the world. And we had the Plymouth Bay colony, obviously in Plymouth with the Pilgrims. We also had the Massachusetts Bay colony, centered in what we now call Boston. And the dividing line between the two of those is actually the county line between Abington and Weymouth. In fact, on Route 53, there's a memorial marker called the Heap of Stones. And that's generally recognized as the earliest political boundary in the entire nation. So, and we're right next to it. But here we are, north fringes of Bridgewater. By the late 1600s, early 1700s, there was a desire to set off an area as a separate township, separate from Bridgewater, to not have to report to Bridgewater for everything. Ironically, some of the most active early settlers came over the line from Weymouth. And indeed, Jacob Nash was one of them. He never settled here. He was a selectman in Weymouth, but he owned land here, and his family ended up settling here. But he gathered the inhabitants, the landowners actually, together and suggested the idea of forming a separate town. And they began to do that. In order to do that, they needed a settled minister, and they needed a map. Map was easy enough to pull together an area that we could claim as ours. Settled minister, they had a little false start. Elder Pratt came in, but he didn't have the credentials. Sam Brown came in, and he did. He was a graduate of Harvard. Some of the early records say he went to school at Cambridge, and that totally confused some historians who thought he went to England. Cambridge was their way at the time of saying Harvard. So anyway, so Sam Brown came and settled in town as the first settled minister, and by 1712 the town was established, separated from. And anyway, but the pond we are at right now came from damming up the Shumatuscacant River. Okay, who can say that with me? Shumatuscacant, okay. The Shumatuscacant flows roughly from Great Pond down through Weymouth and Abington and Whitman and keeps going from there. The Shumacastacut is running through Ames Knoll State Park. But all of the ponds in town are not natural. They're all mill ponds coming from damming up a particular stream. And so this has been drained a few times before. They just need to go down to Center Ave and pull the boards out of the dam. And you can drain this to work on it. It's a big deal, but it's been done at least once during my lifetime. So, and others may have memories of that too. So this is the dammed up Shumatuska camp, but they dammed it up to make a mill down that end, Jacob Nash's mill, and they actually were told cut the lumber for the first church here. Again, you needed a church, you needed a map, you needed a minister. The first church would have been located about where Route 18 auto body is now. And anyway, so that's what they needed, that's what they started, and that's what gave us the pond. The pond didn't start out this big. The height of the dam changed. I don't remember the year, but
1836, I think.
She's good. I can't do 1836, but
This was the original.
more of a kidney-shaped piece.
Yeah, that
Not
was the
even.
original Nash's
Liver
Mill
shape. There we
Pond.
go.
And then in 1836, when they raised the dam, it became this shape. Became much bigger and had a little swimming area over there.
So this is a lot of early history. What the new memorial markers around us, the interpretive markers that you're going to see through the park, there are a total of 5. Excuse me, we have 4 in place now, and there's 1 still to come at the other end of the bridge. But this really speaks more to the Civil War experience, the abolition experience, which came later. So I'd like to take you across the bridge. It'd be fun if we could see that part. Go.
Can I just step in?
Go, please.
When you think of Island Grove Park, I like to think of it as 2 sections, the pond section and the park section. They were owned by different people. They became part of the town at different times. And this was a meadow. So the original settler from Weymouth was Andrew Ford, and he built a really crude homestead where Adams and Washington Street come together. And that's because there was a Native American path called the Setauket Path that ran down Washington and then swerved around on Adams. So he was near that, and he was also near the river, so he could have fresh water. That homestead is long gone. But he owned the land from there all the way down here, and his son, Andrew Ford Jr., built the house at 770 Washington Street, which is the oldest house in Abington that still resembles what it looked like back then.
At least the back end of it.
It was the back end of it. The brick portion was added, and it's been many things. It's been a stop along the Turnpike Road. It's been a post office. The first postmaster lived there. It's been a school. So this was actually called Ford's Meadow, and it was a meadow with the little stream running through it. And then Jacob Nash, his family dammed up that end, created the small pond for Nash's Mill Pond, and then later it became a bigger. But once you had the sawmill, you now had hydropower
Exactly.
and sawmill. And then there was a grist mill that came in at the southern end. And Gurney from Whitman built a tack factory down there as well. And then shoe factories grew up along here. That took, over 100 years for that all to happen. So one of the first streets that the town decided to really invest in was Center Ave, because it got you from Setauket Path to the mills. And the Setauket Path was a Native American trail. Everyone thinks that they have Native American burial sites in their backyards here, and no Native Americans ever lived in Abington. They did travel through here. They had homesteads in the Bridgewaters where there's freshwater fishing, and they used the Setauket Path to travel to Weymouth, to Wessagusset, where there's saltwater fishing. So they did travel through here, and there were Native American families that lived here, but not in the sense of prior to European settlement. So that's
Very
I think
cool.
that. And now we'll cross.
Why don't we get started walking?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This bridge was created as a memorial bridge for the town's 200th anniversary in 1912. And it was post-Civil War enough that they wanted to still memorialize that. And also it was shortly after the breakup of the town in the 1870s, 1874 and 1875. Rockland broke away first as a separate town, and then the following year, exactly 150 years ago, Whitman broke away as a separate town, and they're celebrating their big anniversary this year. So anyway, but this was the last time they really came together in a big way to celebrate their common heritage. Because by 1912, there were people who were born in the old town and still recognized themselves as residents of and citizens from and birthed in the old town of Abington. So this is a whole thing that they came together for this. And the bridge and the arch, we'll talk about that when we get there, were created as part of that memorial. It was a huge event in 1912. The three towns got together. There were days off, there were parades, there was all types of celebrations. And we've not seen the like of it since, as many times as we've tried. But anyway, but we get together for fireworks. That's good. Anyway, let's start making our way.
Before the bridge, there were ways across the pond.
Ferry.
There were stepping stones, there was a wooden bridge, and there was a ferry. It was called the Ida Lewis. It was a flatbed. It had
hand cranks.
And kids, it could fit 40 people on benches, and two kids cranked, and one kid did the rudder and got them across that way. And then in 1912, the bridge was built, so there was no more need for the Ida Lewis. And I hear that it's at the bottom of Silver Lake. I don't know.
I've read the same, but I don't think there's much left of the Ida B. Lewis.
No. And Ida Lewis, I was surprised at the name. Ida Lewis, it turns out, was a lighthouse keeper down in Newport, Rhode Island, that took over when her husband died and saved all of these men and rowed out and got them in the middle of a storm. So she was kind of a famous lighthouse keeper down there.
Why we
Why did we
memorial
took her
a lighthouse
name?
keeper
I don't
here?
know.
We didn't have a lighthouse,
Nope.
so I don't know. That's all right. It works for us.
Oh, and this rock. So the businesses, where's that rock?
Over here.
There it is. That's called Lighthouse Rock. And the businesses that were set up along here, and then also down on Center Ave, when they needed more hydropower, they raised the water, but they weren't supposed to raise it be more than what the hole. There's
The
a
drill
hole
hole.
in there.
There's a drill hole.
Yeah, yeah.
And the drill hole establishes when the water level's at the drill hole, all the property lines are where they're supposed to be.
Yeah. I haven't seen the drill hole in a long time.
It's on the other side.
Yeah. And sometimes, I don't know if we'll be able to today,
Oh, Danny knows what it is.
you can see remnants of the Shumatuska River. Although it looks like it's flowing south to north today. It might just be
It's
the
just
wind.
the wind.
Yeah, because it flows south, north to south.
But there's actually a channel
Yeah.
that
The
was
stream
created.
really still runs through, and you can see it sometimes.
Let's cross the bridge. There are efforts currently underway to restore the bridge, and I think we got a big grant or commitment from the government.
The bridge cost $3,200.
Or initially.
3,200, 32,000, 3,200. A lot of money back in
1911.
Yeah. And now to fix it, which it does need fixing, obviously, it's in the millions, just the way things go. But it does need repair, both this surface.
The deck.
And there have been repairs made in the past. In fact, the buttresses that hold this up, in the 1960s, one was giving way. So they drained the pond, they cleaned it, they took all the silt from the bottom, they sold it to homeowners who now have it on their lawns in Abington.
Some, yeah.
You have, okay. Contractors bought the silt. And then a big storm, Hurricane Claire, came through. And the water came rushing down, and they were like, we're going to lose the buttress, and it's going to collapse the whole bridge. So they spent 24 hours. Football team, Abington High athletes came and just shored it up with sandbags for 24 hours, and they saved it. That was in the 1960s.
We have to walk over that section too, so tread lightly when we get to the other end. That's where it was.
When are they going to start working on the bridge?
Beats the heck out of me.
Okay.
Do we have any inside knowledge here? Apparently not. Okay.
Okay. Thought I'd ask.
Yeah.
I would say, hopefully not for a long time. We won't be able to use it for like
I
3
know,
or 5,
I
10
know.
years.
And things do go slow.
But
This
your
thing,
kids
when
will
it
be
was
able to use
drained, it was drained in '68, and it didn't get refilled until '72. and they really
Different
pushed
time, I guess.
at that
To do
point.
that.
I remember it, but I didn't know it was empty.
So that brings us to the early to mid 1800s, and the Grove at that time was recreational, swimming, boating, fishing. They even had an Abington Canoe Club. It was located over there, and they had a regatta on Labor Day, and everybody was all dressed up. I think I have a picture of that. Let's see. Oh, they had ice cutting on the Grove. Yeah. So that's one picture of the. There's another one. It was a big deal. Eddie Bailey, the guy who, Jack Bailey's father, he was the commodore of the Abington Canoe Club. And they had ice cutting. There's ice cutting going on here.
The ice house was located where that small gray
Yeah.
building is, right down that end. Lake Street was very commercial at the time. There was
Yeah.
a wagon factory, a shoe factory, so this was quite
There
the
was a
industrial
jail?
center. Yes, actually.
A lockup, they
We have no
called it.
pictures of it, but
Yeah.
yeah. So we'll talk about that when we get
Yeah.
around the point and can see more of it. Sure.
Okay.
So anyway, so things happen the way they happen, and we're now looking at the memorial arch that was created as part of this. It was designed by Beals
Yep, from Hanover.
as the architect for it, for the bridge and the arch. I actually have in my personal collection the approved drawings signed off by the selectmen at the time, and Eileen has a
Building
construction
of the bridge.
photo. And sure enough, they drained the Grove in order to put this in. But they did something a little experimental in creating the arch. They did it all out of concrete. It's solid concrete, but they wanted it to look like stone. So they made a very wet mixture of concrete so that the aggregate would come out to the surface. The problem with that method was, well, how many of you have seen a mud puddle after a storm, after it's dried? What happens to the mud? Cracks into a million pieces. Well, if you look closely, it cracked into a million pieces. And over the years, there were attempts to patch it, to fill it in, to do whatever. But there was some reinforcing in the top that was rusting and coming through. The bronze didn't look too good anymore. So a few years back, the town got funding and voted to restore it. And that we closed this end of the bridge and did a restoration that went for about a year. First doing the concrete work and then the bronze work. The bronzes are the work of the design of Bela Lyon Pratt. He did a lot of famous sculpture work, including at Boston Public Library, and I think that's Harvard, isn't it?
And that's the public garden.
Public Gardens, okay.
Edward Everett Hale spoke at Gettysburg the same day Lincoln did. He went on for 2.5 hours and nobody remembers a thing he said. Lincoln went on for, I don't know,
12 minutes.
and everybody remembers. And then this one here is in the nurse's room at the State House. So Bela Pratt was quite the sculptor in his day. He studied with Daniel French Chester, who did the Lincoln Memorial, and his work. Oh, he did the Fisherman up in Gloucester, and here he was visiting
In
Abington.
Abington.
And also the man Beale, the architect who did the archway and the bridge, he did the Dyer building, he did the Santander Bank building, and he did across the street
The old fire
the
insurance
old
building.
fire insurance building, and now I think it's called Angel Neurological.
And he did a couple of schools in Rockland,
Yeah,
for that
yeah.
matter, too. Very prolific
Right.
architect at the time. Now, the castings, the bronze castings, were done at Gorham, down in Rhode Island. And the actual soldiers and sailors to the sides were an afterthought. The approved drawings don't include them. Someone sketched them in. And the Ladies' Aid
The
Society?
Women's Relief Corps.
Women's Relief Corps decided to pay for those, and
Yeah.
they were installed accordingly. I do believe at the base of one or both of them it says Gorham right in the casting. So that was kind of a cool thing to see together. But anyway, separately, Daedalus Company came in and cleaned up the bronze and restored it and coated it with wax, which is what you do. And I think the eagle's in need of another coat of wax. But other than that, it seems to be holding up very well.
And there was some controversy about the eagle.
German or not.
Yeah, some people said that it's a German eagle and not an American eagle. I don't know enough about eagles to tell you which
They
way.
didn't either.
Yeah. And the other thing is, when 1912 was coming along, the 200th birthday, the town took the northern part of the pond by eminent domain. They already had this part, and they took this part by eminent domain, and the park itself was purchased from people who owned it in like 1882.
Yeah.
And that's when it became an official park. And it's also when Abington started their first park department, because if you have a park, you have to have a park department. And they had 3 park commissioners, and they bought it from the Wilkes family, who had bought it from the Reed family, who had bought it from the French family. And it went from the park all the way to Plymouth Street. Plymouth Street was called Back Street.
Where the
then.
ball field is now.
Where the
Yeah.
ball field is now, the whole thing was theirs. And for a while, the Reed family, they were in between the French and the Wilkes family, they used it as an entertainment center. They rented it out to people. They had amusements. They had outdoor food places. They had an outdoor bowling alley, and they used it and made money off of it. And they rented it out to political events. John C. Fremont, who ran for president in like 1848, he had a big rally here. There were 75 kids from Boston who were baptized in the Grove. There were all kinds of different things that happened, and the Wilkes bought it, and the Wilkes sold it fairly cheaply to the town, with the understanding that it would be a park, and it has been ever since.
Absolutely.
And the town brought in the sons of William Law Olmsted, who he did Central Park and Boston Garden, just
The Emerald Necklace.
yeah, the
Yes.
premier park architecture people, landscape architecture. And the sons said, you don't need to do anything. This place is perfect
It's a
as
pine
it is.
grove.
Yep. It was 10 degrees cooler than anywhere else. These pine trees are not the originals.
Far from it.
They got destroyed in
Hurricane of
38.
38.
Yeah.
That's it.
The town ran a sawmill for like 2 years after that hurricane, just sawing up the wood. And the town also planted 3,000 trees to replace what went down. And so we're seeing how nice the effects of that are. So,
Since the 1930s.
yep, since the 1930s, yeah. Not that we remember it.
No.
Okay.
Well, let's head up to the arch and get a closer look.
Doug, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Of course you can, Ken.
On behalf of Abington Celebrate, we want to thank you guys for doing this to us. It's really great. It's a good part of the weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And every year more and more people come.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable. And even though I've taken it a couple times, I still learn something. And you guys play off well against each other.
Yeah.
You do. It's great. It's great. It's just such a wealth of knowledge. And anybody has any questions about Abington, contact the Dyer Library or Doug
Doug.
Ulwick.
Yeah. Thank you.
And you
Happy to do
you
it.
get the long story in the short story. So thank you.
Since we're
Which
thanking
one's which?
people, you guys who do Abington celebrates 3 times a year, year after. I don't know how you do it. That to me is incredible. Seriously.
Thank you.
We do it because we don't have rain. Oh wait. No. Hopefully we'll see everybody at the fireworks.
Yeah.
Sure.
And you get a good view from here too, and no
Yeah,
traffic.
yeah.
But
We don't talk about
we
that.
don't talk. We can't have too many people on the bridge till it gets redone. Thank you.
Excellent. One thing I've learned through my more extended studies of Whitman this year, because of that anniversary, is there was a little bit of one-upsmanship going between Whitman and Abington. Whitman, although they were established in 1875, created a town park in 1880, before we did, which was kind of interesting. This existed as a private entity, but not as a public park. So they kind of beat us to the punch there. And there's a few other things they did as well that they did first and we followed them, or tried to. The southern part of the town had a great deal of wealth, a great deal of industry, and they were able to do quite a bit, more than the old town actually could at many times. But let's head up into the Grove.
So the archway is dedicated to the soldiers of the Civil War. And at the time of the Civil War, we were still the old town. So it's Abington, Rockland, Whitman soldiers. And when the Civil War broke out, there was no draft. And so Lincoln called for volunteers. And the first group to volunteer from Massachusetts was from the old town. And they went to Whitman, well, South Abington.
Exactly.
And boarded the train. There's a plaque at that spot right on the, I don't know what the main street in Whitman.
Washington? Yeah.
Stating that the regiment took the train from there and they went into Boston, and they were supposed to camp out on the Common until they were called up by the governor and so on. But it was pouring rain that day, so they put them in the animal stalls at Faneuil Hall. And they spent their time there until they were called up. But it was the first unit that answered Lincoln's call. We have a little claim to fame.
Absolutely. Head down into the grove.
Yep. Also, speaking of the Civil War, almost every family was touched by it because they had a father, a brother, an uncle, a son that went off to fight. And we're talking thousands. There were 1,200 men that fought in the Civil War from the Old Town. And for that time period, 1861 to 65, that was a big chunk of the male population. So every family was touched by the Civil War. And it probably brought people together after the war more than any other event until we probably get to World War I or II. Even, yeah, probably World War II was the biggest one after that.
Mm-hmm. We can see some of the filled in cracking on this side of the arch a little more clearly. We had a bunch of different grout samples to approve to try to get something close. And in the lower panels, it was pretty good. By the time you work your way up, the same grout color didn't quite match quite as well. But it's holding up quite nicely. This time it is capped at the top with a synthetic sealant to stop the water from getting inside and penetrating and doing more cracking. But it's holding up pretty well, I think.
So the town paid for the bridge, but Lewis Crossett, who was a shoe manufacturer here in Abington, he paid for the arch and the eagle. And Lewis Crossett, if any of you, well, here I'm going back in time, Mildred Alfred Nursing Home, which is now apartment buildings across from New England Art. Well, New England Art was the Lewis Crossett Shoe Factory. And the building across the way that is now apartments was the headquarters for the bosses, and there was a tunnel underneath so that the bosses could go over to the factory and check in and do whatever. But Lewis Crossett was a rich, important man in Abington, as the shoe manufacturers were Moses Arnold, Lewis Crossett. I'm sure there are a whole lot more. And he was big into the YMCA. He was in the International YMCA, and he brought a YMCA to Abington. It was on the corner of
North Ave
and
Adams, where the gas station is now.
Where the gas station is, there was a YMCA.
And Mrs. Reed donated, actually she sold it to them for $1.
Yeah.
And he converted it. And a lot of older residents remember it as the Bush family's house and the Bush's barn.
Yeah.
So even after it stopped being a YMCA,
People played basketball.
they were still playing basketball in the carriage house.
So again, bridge by the town, but Lewis Crossett paid for all this, and Lewis Crossett's name is not even on it. And I think that's testament to the thinking of people back then. We're going to see something that was paid for by Moses Arnold, and his name isn't on it. They did it for their civic duty, their love of the town and the people in it, so they didn't need credit themselves.
Yeah, actually next to the old Crossett Shoe Factory, or New England Art, as a lot of us might know it, is the North School. Well, the North School was following after the Adams Street School. That was the original school built around the 1870s. And they had outgrown it. They were adding to it. The bids came in on the proposed construction of the additions and renovations, and it was over budget, and they were going to go back and redo it. And Lewis Crossett stepped in and said, I'll pay the overage, I'll pay to furnish it, let's just do it, let's finish it.
He said, these are the children of my workers.
Exactly, my employees' kids go here. So they wanted to name the school after him, and he refused. He said absolutely not. And so they didn't, but some of us know that Lewis Crossett paid for that. As we know, Lewis Crossett paid for this. So he actually ran into Bela Lyon Pratt. They were both coming back from New Hampshire from a, I don't know, one of them was on a snowshoeing adventure. And in the carriage on the way to the train, they realized they were with patron and an artist at the same time. and they talked, I guess, for the entire trip back to Boston. So it was a chance meeting. It's recorded in that Bela Lyon Pratt kept writing everything in letters to his mother that were preserved, and there was a website for a long time that had them, and it told the story about our eagle, about running into Lewis Crossett. So,
Yeah, he mentions it. So I was on the train to Abington.
Yeah.
And
exactly. Small world even then.
Yep. And after the Civil War, they had a dinner here for the Civil War veterans as a mustering out service, and it was attended by, I'm just going to say thousands.
Yeah.
I hear numbers, and
We don't believe the numbers.
yeah, because they're almost like, oh, I don't think 10,000 people could fit here. But thousands came for the mustering out service, and the war ended in April, and the mustering out was in July of 1865.
Perfect. Let's walk down out onto the point, and I'll have to explain why it's not a point anymore.
So there was talk in the 1960s of, because Abington, I think everyone agrees, is a family-oriented town, and they do a lot for the kids in town. And so there was talk of building a place for the kids to swim. And one of the possibilities was they were going to build a town pool on Memorial Field behind the Frollo. And I don't know if it was football is played there, so that's sacrilege, or what, but they decided to go with the swimming hole here instead. So this place opened up as a swimming hole in 1968, and that's a few years ago.
A few, by
Yeah.
all means. But it was important to note that the Grove was used for swimming, but it was heavily polluted. So there was lots of earaches going on and lots of health issues going on. So that was part of the push for a separate swimming facility. The land in front of us right now sometimes is called Moses Neck, sometimes the Point, but
Nice job.
it was a peninsula back in the day. The way they achieved their sandy bottom swimming hole over here is they put the dike across this end of this cove and connected it back to, with this arm connecting to create this separate sandy bottom swimming hole. It is spring fed, natural pump water fed. It is chlorinated, and it is healthy. And it gets drained down every spring, and they go in and clean it out and start all over again every year.
And it's really a wonderful place for Abington families to come. Their kids learn to swim. They have a nice, cool place to be. It's relatively economical for town families. You don't have to drive to Duxbury Beach and pay $25 to park. So it's a nice little thing. And they have this snack shack. And I forget when they built this. Do you guys remember? Saying
That was with
68.
the original creation.
Yeah. And the other nice thing is it employs a lot of Abington High kids.
Yeah.
They're the lifeguards and the safety people and so on.
First summer job. What a place.
Yeah, I know. We have some nice pictures. Sean Riley was a lifeguard here, and he just, we still accept donations to the Dyer of anything historical. Dan brings up things every now and again. And Sean just dropped off a whole bunch of photographs that were taken probably in the 80s when he and the kids at that time were the lifeguards and whatnot. And the nice thing when you bring in photographs, he had the names of everybody on the back. Sometimes we get photographs and we're like, okay, who is it?
Well, the people who gave
My
it
own-
don't know anymore
My
either.
own photographs at home.
Yeah.
Okay, that's your relative, but who knows?
Bless those who take notes in the back of the pictures.
Yeah, it's very helpful. So again, these trees, I mean, it's really such a shame, were newly planted, and thank goodness the town did that. 3,000 trees.
Yeah.
They had the foresight to know that we would need them, that it would be worthwhile to do that,
And I would have had no idea that
that they weren't native
Yeah,
to the
native,
place.
right,
I agree.
right.
I agree. That hurricane of '38 was a bad one.
So the railroad came to town in the 1830s, and it's running along this side to the east on the other side of Park Ave. We'll get over there in a bit, but I bring it up because one of the ways that this place got populated, shall we say, and used was for abolitionist meetings and other meetings too. But how did the people get here? They got here by train. The Abington station was up at the corner of Center Ave in what is now Park Ave, though Park Ave came in later. And they would come from Boston to out here to the country, under the trees, in the grove, on the point, surrounded by water. It was pretty idyllic if you had to go someplace to listen to someone speak. And so it was the railroad that actually anyway.
Made it popular.
Thank you. That's not the word, but I'm not getting it out, so
Yeah.
thank you for filling in.
Yeah.
Anyway, and led to the fame of the place. The Dyer and the Historical Society have a wonderful collection of the Liberator newspaper by William Lloyd Garrison, all abolitionist news. And we have one of the unusual full hard copy collections, not quite full, but almost.
Almost.
And anyway, but Abington is mentioned in it often as the place for these meetings for the abolitionists. So it was a nice place to come. It still is.
still is,
And in fact, tomorrow morning at I think 10, United Church of Christ is doing a church service right here at the Stone. We'll get there soon. We'll go by way of the bandstand first.
It cost 58 cents to take the train from Neyland Street to, they had to stop at Plymouth Street, and it cost 55 cents to come up from Plymouth, and that's how people
We're
got
midway.
here. I know. And it's funny that Abington did lean abolitionists in the mid-1800s, or 1850s.
Lean being an important word.
Lean. I think because of the Grove and the abolitionist history here, people think that we were all abolitionists and just fighting for the end of slavery. It was probably, like most things, a third for it, a third wanted to keep slavery, and a third were like, I could care less. But the abolitionists had their way. What I find funny, not ha-ha funny, but funny, is that the ministers often led the abolitionist movement when it was the ministers that were the slaveholders here in Abington, because they got paid a salary. They could, and they had to minister their flock, so they couldn't do the things like work, like grow food and things like that. So they had slaves that did that for them. And then 140 years later, they saw the light and became abolitionists. And just William Lloyd Garrison said, the most delicious spot, hold on.
I do the same.
The most delicious spot that nature ever formed for the refreshment of man, a peninsula of the greatest and most graceful variety of surface, crowned with whispering pines and bathed on three sides by a broad stream and gentle waters. And that's how we refer to the Grove in the Liberator, which is pretty nice.
I think he liked it.
I think he did, yeah.
Well, let's head out to the bandstand next. We can see a lot of the south part of the Grove and talk about why it's called Island Grove. Anyone think about that one? It's not an island. So here we have another little bit of town rivalry going on. Remember I said that Whitman did their town park in 1880, not long after they were formed, and Abington bought this land after that. Well, they also had Olmsted in as their landscape architects, and they were going to build a bit of a structure that would be a bandstand and it would be toilet facilities and whatever. They didn't do that, but in 1907 they built the bandstand, which still stands. It's out behind Town Hall on the park, and it wasn't until maybe 1920 that Abington decided to create this stone bandstand. And I'm going to, like Eileen did, pull up my glasses, because there's a wonderful little back and forth here talking about pride. I have to point out that this stone base is just a little bit bigger than the stone base in Whitman. But in 1920, the funds are available on account of interest on the helpful and considerate bequest made by Mrs. Elizabeth K. Nash and Mrs. Emily D. Poole in their wills for the benefit of the park, will be expended in the building of a foundation for an ornate and permanent bandstand to be erected in the place where the present temporary structure is located. It was 1920. 1921, without any additional appropriation, by using accrued interest from the bequest of the a serviceable and useful fieldstone bandstand has erected at the waterside. We went from elegant and wonderful and covered and better than Whitman's to, yeah, well, this is what we built.
And here's what it looked like.
And originally it
top
had a
was
wooden
just a little
roof,
different.
and it kept rotting and leaking. It was used as a changing room for the boys.
The boys, yeah.
And the girls were somewhere else. But the roof kept leaking, so by the 1930s they put the reinforced concrete deck on top of it. But I can give credit to the gentleman who did it. Dan Howland is with us today. He brought in an electric service from this pole into it, and it's a 100 amp service, I think, and it actually has a conduit going over to light the abolitionist stone, but it provides power for all things needed at this end of the grove. And at one point, it certainly powered up the town Christmas tree, which we used to erect on top of the stone bandstand. So thank you, Dan. Much appreciated.
Just one more thing that Dan does.
Eileen, we were talking about benches the other day.
Yeah.
This is the old style bench.
Okay.
There's 2 or 3 different styles throughout here. This has the egg and dart molding around the base.
Oh, okay.
So there's one here and one over here.
You'll see benches that look like this, where the bottoms are decorated, and when we're on the other side of the grove, you'll just see very simple, no decoration on the benches.
But again, we're out at the point which was original.
Right, and
So-
this is where people went swimming in the 1880s and probably early 1900s as well. This was like a beach
I think this is the old lifeguard stand
until the
here.
60s. Oh, we were wondering what that.
Yeah.
Oh, we were wondering where that is, yeah. Okay.
Now from here we get a view of the dam, which is capped by Center Ave. And for those who don't have paid attention to it, we use the French spelling. It's C-E-N-T-R-E, not E-R. But that's Center Ave. And the other weird part of that is we have no main street, even in the old town of Abington, but we had a North Ave, a Center Ave, and a South Ave. North Ave still exists, going between North Abington and Rockland. Center Ave still exists, going between Center Avenue and Rockland. And South Ave is entirely contained within the town of South Abington, also known as Whitman. So it's kind of one of those weird put together the pieces, but if you do put together the pieces, Center Ave is Center Ave for a reason. But we can see the dam. The original opening, I think, is more to the right. There's 2 sets of openings down there. To our right here was a shoe factory, and Eileen already mentioned the canoe club over here, and there's still a building over there with a chimney on the end and a bluish gray roof. That was a wagon factory, and they made the bodies for the first automobiles made in Abington, the Buffum. And there's one Buffum known to exist. It's now in the Netherlands. Hague. It's in the Hague, yeah. So anyway.
I know.
She knew. Anyway, we also had a motorcycle manufactured here in Abington over near where the train is now.
Yep.
It was Littlefield Wyman after that, but it was the motorcycle company before that.
I can't remember the name.
It'll come to me.
Yeah.
That's okay. Anyway, let's head over to the Abolitionist Stone. The Abolitionist Stone predated the Memorial Arch. Moses Arnold, who became a famous shoe manufacturer in town, used to come to the abolitionist meetings with his dad. And the seating was arranged out here. He remembered where the speaker's stand was. And coming back from the war wounded, was it
He
Antietam?
was shot at Antietam and
Antietam.
survived, which he was lucky to do since that was the one day battle, deadliest battle of the Civil War.
So he wanted to create a memorial to the abolitionist meetings. And he got the town's permission to do it and put it again on the spot where the speaker's stand was. And this is it. So you can imagine then, I mean, they saw kind of what we saw, a little less construction around here, but the beautiful trees, the water on 3 sides, and could sit here and listen to speakers. And the residents did complain that their gardens got raided quite regularly for tomatoes and vegetables for hungry people who were at the meetings, but And the meetings, again, as Eileen referred to, weren't universally accepted. At one point, there were cannons being fired from the other side of the grove to disrupt the speakers.
And
But
then
nonetheless, it happened.
One of the speakers had to hide in a hay wagon
Yeah.
so that they couldn't find him and beat him up, I guess. And those are the most famous, probably, of the people who spoke here,
Yes.
but there were others.
Yeah.
There was a woman named Jane Johnson. She was an escaped slave, and she and her 2 children came and spoke here. And at the time of the Civil War, there were 37 African American families that lived in Abington. Most of them were shoemakers, and some of them served in African American regiments in the Civil War, including Charles Bly, who was a shoemaker here in Abington. And then in 2015, things go downhill, look-wise, as you know, with time and weather. And Doug was involved in the restoration process. So this shows you a before and after the restoration process. So it was really remarkable. Yeah.
We actually saved the town some money. There was a change order on the work on the arch, and we took the change order money and had the Daedalus Company, who were already doing the bronzes up at the arch, and we had them restore the abolitionist plaque at the same time. From some of the early Abington Celebrates events that we were doing here, because you might be aware we did Civil War reenactments here, we started lighting, with temporary lighting, the plaque for nighttime. And it was wonderful and something we all thought should continue. So again, Dan was able to bring in lighting at the base of this that's fed from the bandstand over there on timer and photo cell, and yeah, okay. So it's not lit all the time, it's lit when it's supposed to be lit. So that's kind of cool, but it really calls attention to it, and it's a treasured piece. It appears in old postcards from 1912. It was recognized all along for its importance. The stone, by the way, did not come from here. It came from a farmer's land. The 1912 book says where it came from. It didn't mean anything to me, but I know we imported the
Yeah,
rock.
it's like 6 tons, and he had it brought in.
Yes. Yeah,
And
right.
Moses was an Abington boy who came here with his father, and he left high school his senior year. War broke out in April, and he left high school and signed up. He grew up being against slavery, and he felt like putting his mouth where money where his mouth is. And he signed up,
Service.
and he wound up being a captain, I think. And his brother also, William Arnold, was also an officer in the Civil War, and they both survived the war. And when Moses came back, he bought a little shoe house-type factory, I think on Whale Street.
Well, it was called Cross Street at the time.
Okay.
The corner of that and Adam Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
And eventually he built the Moses Shoe Factory, which is, the Arnold Shoe Factory, which is at the northern end of Arnold Park.
It's our brick shoe factory, the
Yeah,
only
a brick shoe factory, that's right. And
near
now
the
it's all
depot.
artist studios. But he was, again, a wealthy manufacturer who cared a great deal about the town. We have pictures of him and his brother heading down to Gettysburg for like our probably the 50th reunion. Because there are monuments down there to Abington soldiers, to all soldiers, but there's one to Abington. And they all got in this jalopy and drove down to Gettysburg together. And they're old men by that time, but it probably was the biggest factor, changing factor in their lives to have participated in the Civil War.
It wasn't much of a jalopy.
No.
Pretty luxurious for the day.
yeah.
Why don't we head across the dike to the other side of the grove, and we'll take a look at some things over on Park Avenue and head around to the old cemetery and begin. That will be towards the end of our tour. We're getting there. Thank you for your patience. There's a lot of information.
So the Wilks sold this land, and we're talking the land from the pond to Plymouth Street, Back Street, for about $3,200, which was less than my first car cost.
There was a drainage canal coming from the Plymouth Street side. We can kind of see remnants of it here on the surface, some stone walls or concrete walls on the surface. It used to come into this part of the cove. Obviously they didn't want to do that anymore, and now it drains out into the main grove, and it's in a culvert. But there's a pond over here that is part of that system, and you can still see some of it above ground. But this was all part of creating the swimming hole.
So this land was owned again by the Frenches, then the Reeds, and then the Wilkes. And the Wilkes are the ones who sold it to the town in 1882. And some of those people are buried here. And we're going to see not remnants of them, but remnants of their grave.
Well, if you have X-ray vision.
Yeah.
They
the
moved the
gravestones were moved to Mount Vernon, but the bodies were not.
Oh, the remains.
The remains, yeah, because they didn't embalm people back then.
Well, not only that, they probably didn't put them in liners. They just
Right,
put a
they were just in
casket
wooden
them.
boxes, so there probably wasn't much to move. 100 years after this property became part of Abington, they started the Eager Beaver Day Camp in 1982, and that's still running strong as well.
So this is actually one of our newer buildings in the Grove. It was built as the Girl Scout cabin, and the Girl Scouts met here. They were very active, and they got less active at one point. And at one point, someone didn't shut it down properly for the winter, and the pipes burst. And when everything thawed out, the water was flowing out from all the doorways and everything else, and they just kind of closed the doors. Back when John Stone became our head of our DPW, he was looking to make various improvements in town, and I think it was the assistant town manager at the time, Dory Jameson, and they came across the idea of working on this cabin. So he came in with his crews, they fixed the plumbing, put in new toilets, and cleaned it up actually quite a bit, and invited us in to see their work. And that kind of inspired me to say, let's keep going. This could be a conference center, this could be a lot of things. And it became Cabin in the Grove. Dan, I think I have my key. I don't know if you have yours. Thought we'd give them a little look inside about what was done. Yeah. Let's see if mine fits this.
Almost made it.
Coffee and donuts in there.
Really?
My sister's campfire girl thinks of an overnight in here. I was a
sister's
Girl
talking
Scout
about
leader.
that.
We used to have overnights in here. Meetings, parties. We were in campfire. Mine didn't, but my sister's did. I don't
So Lowe's took on a Heroes project and donated and installed most of the counters, cabinet work here. And I know I put out an appeal on Facebook. We were looking for a refrigerator. Jan Crowell had one to us the next day. I then went looking for a stove, and all of a sudden, 24 hours later, we had a stove delivered that matched. Looking for a microwave, and I think 2 or 3 women in town said, we'll pool our funds and get you a microwave. There's also in the further toilet room there's a hot water heater, not a big one, but enough that we finally have hot water to wash your hands with and everything else. Again, donation from just people interested in getting the job done here. So it's been a great volunteer effort. This is used by the arts portion of the day camp in the summer, and it's also used by Abington Celebrates at Christmas, usually as Mrs. Claus's gingerbread house. And it's decorated to the nines for Christmas. And it's, oh, there we go. Dan has some seasonal pictures of it.
Very nice. Yeah.
So, and all the lighting is now LED. Everything has been changed up accordingly. And as I said, a lot of volunteer efforts, a lot of donations have brought it to what it is today. And I still see possibilities. I'd like to see windows with shutters that would open so you could see out. Stain the outside, maybe put in some central heat air conditioning and make it more usable year-round. So I haven't been soliciting donations for any of this lately, but based upon past history, maybe it's something that's possible to do. So it's used quite a bit now that it's usable. Anyway, next on our trip is supposed to be the cemetery. Is it raining too badly out there now? Because we can head up to the pavilion.
I think it's okay. Well, you still have to walk back.
Yeah.
We'll just go
Okay.
back.
We'll close up here.
There's a marker that notes that Island Grove is part of the National Historic Register. It has been since 2003.
Oh, okay.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
It's actually a historic district, which is kind
Right.
of unusual. And the Historic Commission oversees that. They're really not supposed to make any changes without going through them, though I think sometimes we get a little lax with that. But yeah, they had an official swearing-in ceremony, if you will, back then. Well, Park Ave came in much later.
Yeah, like 1889
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah, I think I have the original layout drawing on file. But on the other side is the Plymouth Street ball field, and that was part of this original property. So this property went all the way through. So we're climbing the north bluff here, and to our right-hand side is the last part of the grove that filled in when they raised the height of the dam. So it's actually the shallowest part of the grove. And here we overlook the police station and the site of the new fire station.
So here's what's left. So they call this the French's burying ground, because French owned the land to begin with. Sometimes it's called the Central Burying Ground. And Captain Daniel Reed, other Revolutionary soldiers, family members, Jacob Reed, Thomas Hunt, and James Nash. And this is what's left of one of the gravestones.
I've never tried to match it up to the
No.
stuff in the ancestors section.
There's the remains of one of them here.
Is that another?
Yeah.
Okay, I knew there were more, Dan. I could never seem to find them. This is shown on the 1857 map.
There's still bodies there?
They're still,
Whatever's-
whatever's left is still
It's
there.
still there.
They just moved the stone.
The stones, and when they moved the stones to Mount Vernon, they just put them willy-nilly. They're all in
Oh.
the same place,
Okay.
and you can't read them
I know
anymore.
you can't, yeah.
But unless people were really short,
Yeah.
you know,
I know.
they did that.
I know, I've seen that.
Yeah. Yep.
We haven't done a historic marker for this.
We could do a little autobiographies of these Revolutionary War soldiers.
There's a project.
Yep.
Who can we get to do it?
Oy. I was back to washing graves at Mount Vernon the other day,
Oh, goodness.
and I did the Bretts, Mr. Brett Sr.,
Okay.
and then Mr. Brett Jr., who would be the father of the Bretts that were our ages.
Okay.
And Mr. Brett Sr. was World War I. Mr. Brett Jr. was World War II.
II. So in years that we've been fortunate enough to host Civil War encampments here at Island Grove, and it seems to be a favorite site for that, this is basically the avenue, if you will, that the tents are generally set up on.
So during the last ice age, like 10,000 BC,
I think it was 11, but we won't split
yeah,
hairs.
10,000, 11,000 BC, a glacier covered the top third of the Earth, and that included us. And it gouged out places, one of the places up here, and it also took away all the topsoil. So the reason that we didn't farm here in New England and other northern places, and we turned to business, which was a good thing that we had all those streams so that we could run them, we didn't have topsoil. It got pushed away, and the South still has theirs, but we lost it all. Oh, and it
also why
also
we-
left behind 8 million gazillion rocks. And if you've ever tried to dig, you can thank the glacier for that.
It's also why we have so many stone walls.
Exactly,
That's
yep.
all glacial remains.
Yep. Every time you put a shovel in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it could just be a little one and it keeps you forever, or it could be a big one.
I know, I know.
And we wonder where East Abington got its name to
Right,
call themselves
Rockland.
Rockland. Yeah.
And
They knew.
Whitman, Doug had said that this is the 150th birthday of Whitman as a separate town, but for the first 8 years, they called themselves South Abington. The Whitman name didn't come until the 1886 or something like that.
And I came to the notion that that was really a business decision their mail was already going to, for all the big factories and everything, it was already going to South Abington. So the fact that it wasn't formally incorporated as such up until then, it didn't make any difference to them.
Right.
But sentiment won out.
Augustus Whitman was a townsperson in South Abington, and he left the land that became Whitman Town Park, and probably did other things as well. And I think that they named it, there were choices.
There were
Brainerd,
several, but there were
yeah.
also two Whitmans.
Yes.
And his father, Jared, I think,
Yeah.
was actually the more famous one.
Yeah.
Augustus probably didn't even live there. The old family homestead. To our right is the Sugar Bowl.
I see kids riding their bikes.
Yeah, it's a good thing to do that.
Yeah, you could die that way. Ride your bike down there,
A lot
sure.
of places, the Blue Hills were formed by glaciers, yeah.
So naturally, there are all sorts of stories about Indian rituals that used to happen here, and all these powwows and whatever, and we have no way of knowing that. It seems plausible. I mean, it's a natural formation that's always been there that we know of.
There was a Native American family, there were several, but
Sure.
probably the most famous were the Goulds, Mitchell Gould.
Yes.
And I can't remember her first name.
Was it Severina?
Yeah, I would call it Zervia. But I mean,
Close enough.
Yeah, Zervia Gould. She married Brister Gould. She was Zervia Mitchell. They went to Abington High, and she apparently is the great-great-great-granddaughter of Massasoit.
Yes.
And so we have her story at the Dyer, but if you go down to the Plymouth Museum, they have a huge picture of her, which we have at the Dyer. I wonder if they got it from us.
They did.
In full regalia. And they kind of claim her.
Because she was an Abingtonian.
She
so-
was an
yeah.
Abingtonian. And the Mitchell Gould family eventually left Abington. I don't think that once the guys in the family died, the women were treated with as much respect.
No women were back
I
then.
know, but they really got the short end of it. Their land was taken from them, you know, and so they wound up moving to tribal lands in Lakeville. And then she and her daughter, I think, made a living going around
Being Indians.
being Indians. Yeah.
Absolutely. Also, we had Russell Gardner,
Oh, right.
a more contemporary
Yes.
one. He's the one who I credit. I wrote a paper on it not long ago. How many have heard that Manamuskegon is land of many beavers? It isn't. Land of the tall waving green grasses. And when you think about it, it kind of makes sense in that all of our ponds were meadows with streams flowing through the middle of them that we filled in, we put dams on at the end of them to create hydropower, and all of a sudden the meadows became ponds. Having canoed through Cleveland's Pond at Ames Knoll State Park, you can actually see stone walls running under the water. They start on one side, go underwater, and come back up on the other. It's a flooded meadow.
Yeah, there's
So-
not a single natural pond
None.
in Abington, Rockland, or Whitman.
They're all
They're
man-made.
man-made.
Yeah. So it's kind of an
Cleveland
interesting.
Pond's man-made.
Yeah. Now, Manamuskegon, again, where did the beaver thing come from? We do have
Yeah.
beaver names in town. The Shuma-Tuscakant River and the Shuma-Casticut River, greater and lesser beaver brooks. And a lot of the early deeds refer to Beaver Brook, which is actually Shuma-Casticut. We've confused them over the years, but the Shuma root we believe to be beaver. And there's no Shuma in Manamuskegon. So what Russell Gardner wrote about, he wrote about in 1961 in time for one of the town's anniversaries, and corrected it. And his lineage went back to the Indians actually on Martha's Vineyard, the tribe of Wampanoags out there from Senjakantaket. Boy, I pulled that one up out of the blue, didn't I? There's a lake, by the way, we call Senjakantaket, and his ancestry goes back to that. So we had the benefit of his knowledge for many years. He was very active in the Historical Society and very friendly with the late historian Martha Campbell. So let's head over to the rebuilt pavilion. I'm still having
I have
difficulty swallowing this.
original pictures, so you can talk about the differences because they're looking at the original.
Really?
Yeah.
Not long after Island Grove Park became a park. Did I explain why it was Island Grove?
No.
I'm sorry. If you are at the Center Ave Dam and you look back, particularly back then, there appears to be an island. Of course, it was a peninsula, but you can't tell that when you're on Center Ave. So they saw an island grove of trees, and it became Island Grove, because that was one of the main viewing points. Central Street came in later. Center Ave was there from very early on, and the view of what they saw was an island grove, and that gave us the name of Island Grove Park. It's never been an island, but it looked like one.
And Doug mentioned the Buffum automobile,
Yeah.
and that factory was across Center Ave, where Spencer's Pizza was. They made cars in Abington. A very nice car.
The Buffum, yeah.
Yeah,
It was
very
very
nice.
groundbreaking. He made the
Yes,
first production
a
four-cylinder car.
Four-cylinder?
Yeah.
Okay. I was telling 6-cylinder, so I was.
Well, he made those too.
And he made boats, and he made electric bikes, I think, even.
I don't remember that one.
Yep.
But okay.
He
I'll
wound
buy
up
it.
moving back to up to Lake Winnipesaukee and continued his boat making enterprises there. I grew up thinking that this was the bandstand, but Doug
No.
taught me.
The pavilion. Early on, when we created a park, they recognized there was an issue in creating a park, and that was, hey, where do you go if it rains? So they decided to build this, basically, the pavilion. And somewhere in here, I think I had it in my notes, when they decided to do that. I'm not finding it, doesn't matter. So this was actually the first building built in Island Grove. And it was here as a place to get out of the rain, because back in the day you would have arrived by horse, and later maybe by trolley car or by train or by whatever. But if it started to rain, you really had no place to go for shelter. So they built a pavilion. And the park commissioners told us how they built it. They gave us a list of materials they used. And it has been restored, rebuilt, reworked a couple times over the years. Dan, your brother was involved in a Votech rebuild in the
Around 1978, 79.
Okay, late 1970s, that was the prior rebuild. But the posts originally were cedar posts that were so natural that the branches were kind of just chopped off, but they were still sticking out of the wood. It was that primitive, and that was the way it was done at the time. So, and over the years, the posts kept sinking deeper and deeper and deeper into the ground as they rotted from the underside. And when the most recent rebuild happened, I think they set the new construction at the dropped height. It's too low. They didn't restore the height, and they put concrete under the piers now, and I see galvanized plates attaching that. So it's not necessarily historic construction. The arches are plywood, which is not historic material, but it's still here. We still have a pavilion. There's still a place to go out of the rain. As far as historic restorations go, it's lacking, but it's functional. So
They're gonna put the seats in around?
I have not a clue.
I haven't
out of the
seen
loop.
it since they did it. I'm so thrilled to
Yeah,
see it.
but they
like
did have
this.
benches here,
They
and
did.
that would make sense if you're going to come out of the rain. I'm not standing for an hour until I.
In the middle of this,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. But anyway, so, the town does what the town does,
Yeah.
and there's still something here for a while. They just, put a chain link fence
And
around
for
it.
several years, it had police tape around it because it was not in good shape and it was dangerous.
Unsafe, yeah.
So, better than nothing.
Yeah, our belief is there were at one point cross ties going through to stop it from bowing outward, and also a center post going up through the middle. You can kind of see where one would have been, but none of that was done in the restoration. So, as I said, it's still here, but it's not what used to be here. And it's sad because we have pictures of what it used to look like all the way back. There's even a wonderful shot taken from the old savings bank block up where Abington Liquors is now, looking across across everything into the Grove, and you can make out this building in the back of that. So it's exciting to know it's been recorded and important enough to be recorded on film, as long as it's been filmed. So, so we're kind of ending at the very first building, and you've seen the progress, and you've seen everything this place, well, not everything, a lot of things that this place has been used for. It's been an amusement park, it's been a cemetery, it's been a recreation place, it's been a lecture series host.
Industrial.
Yeah, industrial as
On that
well,
side, yeah.
and certainly recreational to this
Yeah.
day. Mostly recreational now, but it's still the heart of the old town, and worth preserving and worth looking after.
And it's also a visible standing monument to our history. Several phases of it, but particularly the Civil War.
Well, the way we interact with it in terms
Yeah.
of saying, well, this happened because of
Right,
this and
right.
whatever. So it's a story. It's a
Yeah.
timeline for us as well.
And in terms of the Civil War, if you are a Civil War historian, the Dyer Library probably has as good a Civil War library as
Anyone.
anywhere in the United States.
Yeah.
We have the congressional records of the war. Book, I mean, I don't even know how many books. I'm going to say 50. Congress kept a record. This happened, then this happened, then this happened, and it's all there. We've got the Liberator, so you have the social part of it all. We have tons of stories of Abington guys who were Civil War soldiers, what their life was like before the war, what they did during the war, and then what their life was like after the war as well. And it's pretty fascinating.
It is. It's also interesting that although during the Civil War, everyone from the old town who fought in the Civil War came from Abington, all three towns built GAR, Grand Armory and the Republic Halls.
Right.
And it led to kind of an interesting story a couple of years ago. A gentleman called me, he was doing research on cannons that the government had sent out after the Civil War to various towns. And he said they sent 4 cannons to Abington. Where are they? You're the historian, where are they? And I thought, they aren't. They're in Rockland. But Rockland couldn't write to the government and say, we want Civil War cannons because our people fought in the Civil War, because who was Rockland?
Right.
So they went, apparently, we haven't uncovered all the paperwork, but apparently they went through Abington to get their Civil War cannons. 2 of them are in front of their GAR hall, and 2 of them are in a local cemetery. I think originally all 4 were in the cemetery, but when they built the GAR hall, they moved 2 of them to the front of the hall. So those still stand there today. And they still have the only functional GAR.
Speaking of GAR halls,
Yep.
that was they started it so that Civil War veterans could have a place to meet. Each Civil War Grand Army of the Republic had a great big book
Register.
registered.
Yeah.
In it is the story of the soldiers from that town. Beautifully written, beautiful book. And the Abington one was recently transcribed and is now available online to at a place called In the Pages, I think it's called. And so you could just look up Joe Schmo, and you would get the, if he was from Abington and fought in the Civil War, his story is now online for anyone to access.
Joe served in so many wars.
Joe was in, yeah, declared and undeclared. So I guess
Anyway.
that's probably it.
I think we're there. Any final questions before we release you? And thank you for your patience,
Yeah,
first of all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was good.
Lots of information.
Yeah.
Now, where will we see the video, be able to see?
Oh, yeah.
I'll say
He'll give all the proper credits, but we're always available on YouTube, and there are other sites as well, including the Abington cable site and then local cable as well. But we'll talk more about that later.
Any chance you'd put it on Facebook?
I don't know. I could put the link there.
Thank you.
Okay.
But I mean,
The Historical Society and the Dyer both have Facebook sites, so we can list there.
Yeah.
Good.
thank you.
You've been an amazing audience. Thank you very much. Hanging in. It's a long tour, but there's a lot to cover. So hopefully we taught you some stuff you didn't know.
Sure.
But
Okay.
thank you.
Hey.
Okay.
Happy Abington celebrating.
Yes.